Perfect. Oh, somebody else coming. Yeah, I just start with some kind of brief introductions to myself and what we're hoping to do with this. I'm Donald Jantz. I'm based out of the University of Calgary, but I'm also a consultant. I'm a sessional at the UC right now, teaching an undergraduate course in their sustainability certificate. And I have a accounting designation, a graduate degree in sustainability from Waterloo. I've worked in post-secondary for a lot of time at University of Calgary, managed projects at Mount Royal. So currently I consult with post-secondaries, municipalities, clean tech startups, and others on sustainability strategy, process improvement, reporting, and energy efficiency. I'm also the president of Green Calgary, a prominent grassroots sustainability focused not-for-profit. I spent time as a student, staff member, volunteer, and instructor at 7 post-secondaries in Alberta. So I spent a lot of time in school. U of A, NAIT, Concordia College, which I guess is U of A now, Athabasca University, UC, Mount Royal, Bow Valley College. Might be some other times in there, but I can't think of any offhand. I started this group because I think we share a strong interest in opportunities to share member insights into how we can all improve practices and use technology to improve energy efficiency, reduce energy consumption and costs, as well as GHG and particulate emissions. And I think we all are interested in advancing sustainability. For our students, we want to provide them with the best possible future. And finally, to provide opportunities for you to network, learn from one another, start valuable conversations that you might not otherwise get to have. I expect we'll be able to create lots of opportunities to do better together in all these things. I know that you and facilities groups in every post-secondary are key to any effort to advance sustainability, energy efficiency, and performance of our post-secondaries. And I know you don't always get opportunities to have conversations like this with one another. So I'm excited about this opportunity. There's not too many of us, and we probably don't all know each other. I was thinking we'd just kind of go around the room and introduce ourselves with a little bit of information, our name, institution we're coming from, role, and what you think, why you're here, what you think you might be able to get out of this opportunity. So we're going to start off with that. I'll start at the top of my screen, I think. Kaylin, would you like to introduce?
Sure, thanks, Donald. Really excited to meet all of you. Some friendly faces around the table, but definitely lots of new faces. My name is Kaylin Pilkington. I'm the Director of Community Relations and Sustainability at MacEwan University. So our office is technically located outside of facilities, but I work very closely with our facilities department. We recently just hit our 1-year mark of being ISO 50001 certified, which is an energy efficiency continual improvement ISO standard. So that was very exciting. We just had our audit done. And this week we're conducting some sustainable design standard workshops so that we can hopefully create that for our institution as well. I have a background in a Master's of Environment and Sustainability and an MBA and a post-grad degree in green architecture. So I really like to meld kind of the student engagement, operations, and academic pieces together through the Office of Sustainability. And really, out of this group, looking to learn from everybody around the table, share any lessons learned that we've learned over at MacEwan, so that hopefully we can accelerate the energy efficiency practices on all of our campuses. And just really wanting to get to know everybody around the table and see if there's any neat cross-campus projects we could do together.
Excellent. Thanks, Kaylin. Matt in Red Deer.
Hello, I'm Matt Costa. I'm the project coordinator of facility infrastructure and engineering here in Red Deer College. My background is in architectural technology, so one of our portfolios here is all the green energy we have on campus. So I was part of the alternative energy initiative that we put in a few years back, and 4,200 solar panels and a CHP unit to get up to about 2 megawatts of energy generation on our campus. So was a really exciting project, and now we're into the operations side of maintaining that system and looking for more that we can do on campus. So.
And Erin Beddoes, I'm working with Matt as a project coordinator. I guess my background is environmental engineering, and I've worked with a handful of different companies and businesses doing greenhouse gas accounting.
Excellent, thanks. Wim, comment.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Wim Chalmet from the University of Lethbridge in southern Alberta. We're having plus 17 degrees Celsius today. It's just weird.
Nice.
Reason why I'm here, the unofficial excuse is because my boss couldn't attend, DJ Hansen. But all joking aside, I'm the Director of Operations and Maintenance of the university. And of course, sustainability is core for us as well. We have a unique opportunity here, I guess boasting a little bit, but we got a nice grant from the provincial government given to us a couple of months ago to renew our central plant, which means basically we're going to rip and replace all boilers, all chillers, pumps, motors, all that kind of jazz. And we just released all the RFPs for consultants and this and that and the next thing. Probably about a 2-year project, and of course we're ripping out 52-year-old boilers. So I'm really looking forward and quite excited about seeing how far we can push this as far as getting more efficient with energy. 82% of our campus is heated and cooled by the central heating and cooling plant. So it is absolutely key to not only our function, but our survival, because it's also our heating plant. This is pretty exciting. I'm not going to lie. We're hoping, or I'm hoping to push green initiatives as far as possible. I'm happy to hear about the fact that solar panels are going in with our colleagues and all that. So I'm maybe being able to go a little bit into that direction as well. Anyways, before I keep on ranting about that project, that's why I'm here.
Excellent. No, that's great to hear. And you know, Lethbridge does have some of the best solar resource in the country. So that'd be cool. Excellent. No, that's great to hear. Robert.
Just waiting for my mic to unmute. Sorry. So Rob Ackerman, Director of Facilities Management. So that's the operations side of the house for facilities at NAIT. And just so I don't get left out of all the boasting, so NAIT has a unique opportunity as well in that we're in the process of purchasing a tract of land from the city of Edmonton called the Blatchford Lands. And of course, the Blatchford Lands have a net zero goal. So I think we're 32 acres, which just about doubles our current campus size once the deal is done. So, you know, in the past, sustainability hasn't been a really big focus for NAIT. Being a trades campus, we're really heavy energy users, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that, or haven't chose to do in the past. But the Blatchford purchase is going to take NAIT in a different direction in that we've started planning for electrification. So that's, you know, getting rid of the gas service and coming up with a scheme to do district energy purely on an electric basis. So we've got a master energy strategy that we developed last year that kind of lays that out and makes the business case for it. It to my surprise, made sense to extend that onto our existing campus lands. So here to share and here to learn, I guess, from everybody. I've a lot of expertise in the room, so looking forward to it.
Wow, that's excellent. I hadn't realized that NAIT was given that opportunity to buy the. I mean, it makes sense; it's adjacent, but that'll change the campus. That's cool.
Yeah, big time.
Thanks, Trevor, Mr. Morton.
Hey, I'm Trevor Morton. I'm the Director of Facilities for Northwest College, downtown Edmonton. We're about a block south of Kalen and McEwen. We've just recently finished, or we're just about to finish, a big series of renovations called the Downtown Campus Development Plan. Part of that was building a new building and actually creating a symbiotic relationship with an older 9-story tower that we had. So the two buildings are interconnected together. The boilers are in one, feeds both of them. Electrical comes in the other one, feeds the other one, kind of thing. So the Singmar Center for Learning is the new building that came online in 2017, was since been awarded LEED Gold. And then we've just recently, like I said, renovated the old tower top to bottom with all new infrastructure and whatnot. So we're just basically here. Jason Schuler is the manager of operations and maintenance, also on the call, so he might add to this, but we're here as kind of tire kickers to see what we can do next.
Excellent. No, that's often the case. You get it in place, and then really making sure it performs how it should is a really big part of that as well. Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, Mr. Silver.
Hi, my name is Dave Silvern. I am one of the directors at SATE, and I oversee sustainable operations, which includes the power plant and capital maintenance programming and asset management and that kind of stuff. Like Lethbridge and Nate, we're sort of mid-master energy strategy, looking at the long-term viability of the first-class power plant on site, which is running really at half capacity right now. And with COVID, obviously, our utilization is down. And so what was a strategy a year ago economically starts when we had a significant footprint expansion on the books. Might not be the same strategy now, which has been an interesting development in the last year. But I'm interested in sort of having conversations around what that looks like and impacts to future buildings. So as you might switch energy or switch even temperature distribution from a distributed energy system, I'm very keen on those kinds of discussions. I'm formerly from a sort of construction research background and have lots of experience with net zero and zero carbon buildings, but the facilities side tends to move a little slower than that. So we're not as ambitious there yet, but we are definitely targeting. We had some serious wins with our turnbacks and our controls and automation recently, so it's been good. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent to hear progress. It's always important to just keep things moving forward. So excellent. Hi, Amy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Donald, for organizing this. And it's great to hear and just meet everyone virtually. It's a bit intimidating, to be honest, hearing about all the expertise in the room, but it's also fantastic. So I'm the sustainability coordinator at Bow Valley College in Calgary, and my colleague David Simmons is also on the call. I would say energy efficiency and kind of the physical facilities and buildings is not my wheelhouse. I focus a lot more and have been a lot this year really on climate change and communicating that to our students, and also responding to a bit of a call to action from our learners as well. So in 2020, we did a learner survey at the beginning of the year, and 85% of our learners are concerned about climate change, and 85% also want to see the college taking action on climate. So we're just starting our first greenhouse gas emissions inventory. It's just been difficult. I don't even work full time. I work a 0.8, and so kind of a sustainability office of 1. And then Dave is sort of taking care of all the facilities, also as a bit of an office of 1. So it's been a bit of a stretch this year. One thing I'm proud of, though, is I've been doing a lot of advocacy work through Colleges and Institutes Canada. So for those colleges and institutes on the call, trying to get more federal funding for climate action for post-secondaries. And that seems to be going well. So hopefully I'll be able to make an announcement about that in the coming months. So, thanks for organizing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Jason?
Good morning, everybody. I guess just as Trevor mentioned, Trevor and I work together. I'm new to Northwest College. I joined the college back in February of this year, so it's been an interesting 6 or 7 months with the college and the whole COVID situation. So And Trevor kind of touched on kind of the big renovation. So like, I think a lot of the low hanging fruit with our facility has been kind of taken with retrofits and upgrading to more energy efficient equipment. So we're trying to look at, what's the next steps in our energy management plan. Really excited to get the expertise here that everybody else has, and just, a fly on the wall and a bug in the ear just to see kind of what I can collect. One of the things that, I guess the college is proud of and participated in is the City of Edmonton has a benchmarking program that Northwest College is part of we're going into the 4th year now. And the college, the 3rd year awards just came out, and the new building was awarded the best performing building in the university college category. So we're waiting for that big 6-foot trophy to come in the mail to us, and I'll be sure to let you all know when that comes in. So, no, just excited to be here and appreciate kind of pulling everything together. So thanks, Tom.
Congratulations. That's I'm sure it was a great. I hope it keeps up. Helen. Sure, she's. There we go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Hu from SAIT. Similar to Jason, I joined in February as well, so I'm fairly new. My boss, David Silburn, you've just met. So I'll just get a little more specific because Dave's given us a little overview there. So we just applied for the NRCan ISO 50001 for building energy efficiency. So fingers crossed. So I'm hoping to knock on Kaylin's door very soon on that one. Another one to share is we are in the middle of looking at joining the City of Calgary's building energy benchmarking pilot. So perhaps sometime I'll be knocking on Jason's door. I'm not sure about their intake yet. I understand. I'm not sure whether U of Calgary is a part of it. Is it? Do you know, Donald?
I am not sure, but I bet you, Julien will know for sure. We can ask him.
Thank you. Very nice to meet everyone here. So we'll look forward to staying connected.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm interested in learning. I have to touch base with around those the Edmonton and the City of Calgary program as well around benchmarking. See if we can make sure we get data that's useful maybe for that as well if we decide to go that way. I'm really happy with your plug for the Trojans in your picture in the back. It's very nice. Go Trojans. Thomas Watts.
Sorry, as I fight with my mouse here. Thanks for the invite and setting up this initiative. Really appreciate it. My background is actually in business and capital planning. I've been with GPRC for the last, I'll say, roughly 10 years. We definitely do not have the depth of expertise that is on this call in any way, shape, or form. So that was, the key reason why I wanted to attend was basically learn from the group. I would echo Robert's comments as well, that sustainability has not been a major focus for us, and also being a trades campus, we are energy pigs to say the least. So, given that we are, looking to expand some of our programming and coming up on renewals for some major equipment, I thought this would be a great time to sort of tap into a strategy go forward that's more sustainable, especially given the cost pressures that we're all facing right now in our new environment. It's more relevant than ever. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this group. So thank you again for the invite and setting this up.
Excellent. No, that's great. Hopefully we'll find ways to help. James. Mount Royal. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jim?
I think he put some stuff in the chat there.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll take a look at it, but maybe I can get David Simmons to just briefly introduce himself. That'd be great.
Hi, I'm Dave Simmons. I'm the facility manager at Bow Valley College, as Amy had pointed out, and did a fantastic job of introducing the college. Really, we're here to learn from everybody else and all their expertise. We're kind of one of the smaller fish in the pond here, but we'd really like to learn on where we can capitalize and spend our money in the best way to capitalize on savings. So yeah, we're happy to be part of the group. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, that's great. I think that we all have a place at the table to learn from one another. So definitely that is very good. I think that, oh, Julien, would you like to just say something briefly? My colleague from the not-for-profit and the consulting area.
Hi, everyone. Really interesting to hear about all your the perspectives you bring to this. As Donald just said, I worked with Donald at Mount Royal briefly, and we run a not-for-profit that looks at sector-wide programs, essentially built around communities of practice. So working with Donald a little bit on the support and how to establish this so that this can really run and thrive. We're really interested in moving the needle on energy efficiency and climate change for sure. And we find when sectors get together, they're usually big leaps forward, especially when you can involve data and real measurement. So looking forward to it.
Excellent. I think that covers everybody. So I think actually we're right on time now to move into the presentation. Is there any questions or anything anybody wanted to ask at this point? I think so. So Julien, I guess you can kind of take over and just put your show your screen. I assume you hear. Maybe you can briefly introduce yourself. Actually, I've got a bit of a write-up to introduce you, unless you'd like to do that. Where did I put that? Oh, I've written something really nice. So Julien's a specialist in energy efficiency at University of Calgary. He's been there for a few years. Prior to that, he was working consulting at a number of Stantec, WSP in Vancouver for another organization. And he did that, from what I could tell, for about a decade. And prior to that, he did both his bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering at McGill. So he's got a long and really established background in this field. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him about the project.
Thanks, Donald. Yeah, no, that's a great introduction for myself. So I've been with the University of Calgary now for coming up on 3 years, and my role is primarily around program management of our utility reduction program, which is our institutional energy efficiency program. So it's all of the low hanging and bit higher hanging fruit. So that's been going for now into year 5 of the program. And so that's still going strong. We're still finding opportunities across our campuses. But as some have mentioned, those opportunities are getting fewer and farther between. Now we have to dig a bit deeper. So that brings us. Great. I can just. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep, it's perfect. Great. Thanks.
All right. So today, when I was talking to Donald, we were discussing ideas, and one of the ones I threw out there was, how to get more funding. And I think that is becoming a bigger challenge every day of, how do we maximize our opportunities to fund energy efficiency projects, climate projects within our university. So I'm going to take a lot of this information today is going to really come from some of the lessons learned and challenges that we've had trying to pursue that funding at the University of Calgary for these types of projects. And so it's primarily going to be at that high level, some key lessons, things to think about, and then we'll have some time for questions. So today, the outcomes is, where are your opportunities for grants right now? I think a lot of it was this, we had a few ideas pop up in the introductions. Your funding sources, both internal and external, that you need to keep in mind. Being ready to apply, so what's going to be involved to succeed in getting that funding, and uncovering further synergies that you can apply to future grants or expanding your existing funding envelopes. So when we think about energy efficiency funding opportunities, we really can think about it in six buckets right now. So we've got our renewable energy opportunities, and that includes cogeneration and heat recovery. Emerging technologies, we've got our traditional energy efficiency projects. And then we look at the operations side. So the smaller cost ones, analytics and operations, our quality management systems, and our studies to prepare ourselves for the next opportunities. So when we look at the big ones, when we look at our operational side of opportunities, when we talk about analytics and operations, there's a great opportunity that is coming up more and more. And so you're seeing that both from the vendor side, the supplier side, they're pushing smarter solutions for your organization. And it's also being reflected in the types of funding opportunities that are coming up, especially from the federal side, which is how do we make our systems, our buildings smarter? How do we make sure that it's fine-tuned? And we're looking at ongoing commissioning type projects. We're looking at retro commissioning type projects. We're looking at analytics, so your fault detection programs, and how does that translate into improved operations at your facility? And we're looking at quality management systems. So we had a few of the organizations talk about ISO 50001. You're also looking at your dedicated energy manager or energy management coaching on site. That was an opportunity with previously with Energy Efficiency Alberta. We may see that again, but again, that's the training for your staff and for your organization to really to drive energy efficiency as a culture and an operational opportunity. And then finally, studies. So these tend to, there is opportunities out there to get those studies done to see how you can maximize your climate resiliency, your greenhouse gas reductions, and your energy reductions. And that is those study fundings that are often you can get greater funding opportunities, and it will leverage you when it comes to the larger ones, which is obviously your infrastructure-based programs. So when we're looking at renewable energy projects, those tend to be a separate one from your energy efficiency. So just keep that in mind that some programs will allow you to mix, but oftentimes it's a standalone category separate from energy efficiency. So your energy efficiency projects, that's your typical everything from lighting replacements to heat recovery chillers to even implementation of ongoing commissioning opportunities. And then your last class is going to be your emerging technologies, and this is the stuff that will typically come from your Emissions Reductions Alberta. You're looking at pre-commercial technology, and this type of opportunity will come up often. The opportunities typically in the post-secondary sector to actually apply these may be more limited based on the traditional risk averseness of our sector when it comes to investing our own money into these technologies. So whereas we're keen to actually support these types of technologies within the universities, within the academia, when it comes to actually applying it within our facilities, there may be more challenges here. So obviously, when we're looking at any of these applications, bigger funding requirements, so you're going to need to get more signatures internally, and externally, it may require a lot more work. Increased proof of readiness, so you're going to be able to show that once you get that check or the okay to proceed, you're able to actually start construction. And then it's going to be a lot of, sometimes it will be performance or thematic based. So when we're looking at performance, based on every dollar that your granting agency is investing, what are they getting back? Or they're looking at general themes. So again, they may target certain areas such as renewable energy, and they want to see that go forward. So when we talk about performance-based funding, when we get those applications through, it's key to understand what exactly they're looking for. So when we look at the low carbon economy challenge, that one was very much driven on dollars per greenhouse gas emissions reduced in 2030. That's where the performance is going to come in. So even though the application still requires you to meet qualitative requirements, you still want to be presenting a cost-effective strategy for your reductions. Or we're looking at typical energy efficiency projects or overall percent of energy savings that you will reduce from your organization. The last line, percentage of viable projects implemented. So what we're looking at here is you may be challenged in your such as an ongoing commissioning project. They may include requirements to actually implement X percent of the projects identified, or up to a certain cost up to a certain cost threshold that they want to see implemented. And then confirmation of performance pre or post project. So when we're looking at performance-based funding, are you going to be required to report after the fact, or do they want the confirmation of performance ahead of time? So that's typically, do you have an energy study? Do you have an energy study completed that shows that yes, this project will save a certain amount of kilowatt hours, a certain amount of tons of energy, and it was prepared by an appropriate professional on this. So where do they want that performance certified? So those are the key ones. The benefit of the other challenge with these performance-based funding is they tend to be competitive across all sectors. So it means that you're not only competing against other post-secondary institutions, but you're competing against industry and commercial organizations, which may have a increased risk tolerance, so therefore their applications may be more competitive. So that's why being more prepared here may improve your application. So application comes out, that's great, there's an opportunity for funding, but they're not going to give you everything that you need. You need to go and search for internal money. So this is where an internal opportunity. So this is where leveraging your internal programs becomes a key part of it. Typically, your organization will be somewhat advanced in energy efficiency, but when it comes to operations and maintenance, when it comes to asset management, such as IMP, which is so for those have seen that, is now transitioning to a new program, and then your long-term campus planning, your facilities development. So those, how your university is growing, you're going to see opportunities there to actually leverage those existing programs, such as when you look at asset management, there's opportunities obviously when you're renewing a space or equipment, or for example, if you're renewing an entire boiler plant, there's opportunities obviously to leverage the internal asset management programs to seek additional funding for energy efficiency component or the emissions reductions component. Same as capital planning. So when you're looking at, when we talk about capital planning, we're talking primarily new construction and your design standards. So oftentimes your design standards, your guidelines, we may see elements of sustainability in there, and we'll see elements of energy performance. The question here is, do you understand how those design standards actually impact the energy efficiency? Can you quantify those savings? Can you quantify the actual cost of implementing those? And is there an opportunity to single out those increased investments in energy and sustainability that you're putting into your new construction, and turn that into a project that can be eligible for grant money. And lastly, you've got your energy management on site. So if your organization is set up in such a way that you've got ISO 50001, you've got an energy manager or energy management team, they're going to be having those opportunities, their wish list of energy efficiency opportunities. They're going to be having, they were going to be looking at metering, about information and analytics. So they're going to have opportunities there in terms of your energy management plan that are almost ready to go and may just require some additional opportunity funding to get off the ground, or a little bit more investigation to get off the ground. And lastly, your utilities. So depending on how your organization works with your utilities, sometimes it's integrated within the full facilities. Other times it can be a somewhat of a standalone unit or a standalone system. How they're managing the large systems, they'll have their asset renewal. They will have their management plan for the long-term reliability of the system. And that's going to flag a whole bunch of opportunities for asset renewal within that area that allows you to see if there's opportunities to make it more efficient and create a project out of there for increased funding. So again, there's a lot of opportunities sitting out there in different areas, different reports, different binders. There's other funding streams or existing funding that is dedicated to that can be leveraged to create a multiplier on those projects. So as I said, matching funds. So again, when we're looking at these applications, understand what's eligible and where you're going to get those matching funds. So for some application programs, it may, if you're they'll want to see that the funding is new, that is not pre-existing. Obviously, if you've already committed to starting your expenses, if you have those contracts in place, you need to consider how, if there's a way to show how it's additional. They may flag that some expenses are business as usual expenses, so they're actually not additional. So need to consider how those fundings will help support this project. Again, sources of funding. Sometimes you'll have multiple areas of funding for an existing project. You want to make sure that you're not dipping into the same pot twice. So if it's being funded by the federal carbon tax, make sure that you're not that the additional funding isn't coming from that same source. Your in-kind contributions, obviously, the staff, you need to, sometimes you can put that forward. Some of the more operational projects often consider what's the staff time actually involved in these applications and in delivering this and the ongoing maintenance. And once you start to sit down on that, you could probably see an opportunity to put that in there as an in-kind contribution, increase the actual funding that you're putting in so you can maximize the external matching. And then lastly, also consider your cash flow situation. So depending on how your grant application is being, what the grant is seeking, be cognizant that sometimes the funding will come on a regular basis. Other times it will be a rebate type funding where you have to go back and show your expenses and get refunded for that. So those can start to complicate the suitability of that project depending on how your organization wants to support that cash flow. So obviously these applications, they'll come out, the key, and this is where networks like these actually help, and also your consulting network. So the more time you have to prepare for these, the better your application will be, and the more likelihood of success. And that's the key here, is that there's a lot of applications, a lot of opportunities coming through, and being able to prepare yourself and having the time to go through all of the requirements and and put together a strong business case will lead to success in these applications. So obviously leveraging your network. So internally here, especially your consultants, your contractors, and some of them will have a heads up of this is coming. They will start to feed that information. So that's always good to, do a virtual coffee with them, find out what's happening, and see where your opportunities are. So internally in your institutions, oftentimes you'll have a go-to government liaison. They'll have their ear to the ground too in terms of what's coming up, what kind of themes they're seeing from different levels of government. And you can start to see if you have alignment with your existing priorities. So if your existing priorities are in certain areas of maintenance or a new construction, where's the alignment there? Can you make a project out of it or a funding opportunity? And obviously the themes and trends. So where are we going at with new opportunities? Obviously, climate change is going to be a big one for a while now. How do we get to net zero? How do we reduce emissions in the long term? Also, climate resiliency. So that's another one that you want to keep in mind when you're looking at your infrastructure. How do you increase the climate resiliency of your infrastructure? There's opportunities there. And then same thing when we talk about smart technologies, fault detection and improving culture. So ISO 50001, that's a big one right now. Get the organizations being self-sufficient in terms of energy management, identifying those opportunities, and then analytics is another one. With ongoing commissioning, you understand that the smarter existing buildings are the biggest challenge. How do we make that a key driver of reducing energy and emissions? Sorry. So the key of all of the major infrastructure is being shovel ready. So you're going to see that often the funding will only apply to actual construction projects. So that goes back to how ready are you with these projects? If you look at if you have an energy management plan, if you look through all of the opportunities you've identified, how sure are you of that? Is it based on a bunch of level 1 walkthrough audits or just rules of thumb? Do you have conceptual designs for some of these projects or even schematic designs? So this is where typically on the energy management side, you may not be as ready as you need to. This is where going back to your asset management teams and your facilities development teams can really move the needle on these capital projects. They will typically, again, these funding opportunities come, they come out of the blue, they come quickly, but they're, good prepared for these. They know what's coming down. They need to be ready for this. So where the funding will not support design drawings, can you get those ready in time? So if it's a large enough application, maybe you can. If not, looking at your asset management list, your IMP list, and you probably have a certain level of costing already available. You've identified the items that need to get touched. You probably have some preliminary designs already ready to go. So by reducing that, by increasing that readiness gap, increasing the cost certainty, identifying energy efficiency potentials. That's where working with your asset management and your O&M teams is key, where they all have projects of replacing like for like. Is there an opportunity to increase the efficiency or to future-proof for energy efficiency? And then your reporting, the thing that on the energy management side you should be cognizant of is, are you set up for reporting? So that's both financial reporting and energy reporting. So do you have the systems in place to do that? If you have a ISO 50001, you've got your energy management plan, you probably have increased your metering and your ability to share information. You're probably in a better position. But if you're not, how are you going to report success on these, especially when you're looking at a performance-based funding? So one of the key drivers out of these is especially the reporting and benefits. When we're looking at this, the thing to keep in mind when you're leveraging just what is the benefit of the funding going to do to your organization? Is it just a new piece of equipment? Can it actually drive change? Looking back, can you quantify some of the secondary benefits that you may be able to obtain here to drive either the business case internally or externally? So do you have an idea of the project, the impact on operations maintenance costs? Lighting is a good one. If you replace the lighting, what's the impact? You know, you've now eliminated some of the maintenance requirements there. You've got your energy costs. For a lot of people in the room, that's going to probably be one of their focus on these projects is what's my payback here. Climate resiliency, do you see an opportunity to improve the resiliency of your equipment to future climate threats that your organization is going to face? And obviously reducing the infrastructure deficit. So this is, again, your asset management, your IMP or your CMR right now. Are you able to quantify that reduction? Sometimes some of these projects may not fully qualify as renewed systems, but you've renewed a lot of the components within it. You've added, you may not have replaced all the lighting, but you've renewed most of the components. So now it's no longer as big of a maintenance cost. So being able to quantify that can support your application and support the internal business case when you're looking at your funding. You also need to keep in mind when you're trying to leverage external funding, who's your team? So who can support you in this endeavor? And this is going to take, depending on the size of the application, you're either it's unlikely you'll be able to do it all in-house. So you're going to need to go outside, get your technical experts and consultants. So how much expertise do I need to put together this application? Can I do it concurrently? Do I have them on standby to actually use? Your information technology. So great opportunity. Let's say a fault detection program. How does that fit into your existing IT security strategies? Does that make sense? Your project management. So yes, we can do this project. How long is it going to take? What's my risk that I need to cost in there? Do I have the in-house expertise to start to talk about this, or again, do I need to go outside? Your facilities team, they're often going to be able to provide a lot more insight in terms of the benefit that this project is going to take and how it's going to how that can benefit your application. So your facilities team often have, especially in the operations and maintenance side, they'll be able to identify problematic systems, problematic buildings, and even previous energy efficiency attempts that may not have been successful. And your government relations team. So again, they're going to be able to bring up that expertise early on, or they're going to be able to give you that notice about these projects coming down the pipe. The suitability, your ability to actually go back to the funding agencies and ask them, pointed questions. Am I eligible for this? And the answer may be, well, we don't know. So then there's an opportunity to still apply, make a strong business case, or maybe it isn't. So being able to have those questions and have those quick communications is key. Same thing with having the being able to reach out to your government partners, especially on existing projects. You may already have some external funding in there. How can that mesh with any additional funding that we're seeing from on the energy efficiency side? Lastly, your finance team. I talked about it earlier. You'll need to set up the proper reporting systems, classifications. It may not match up with what you're typically doing in your for your projects. So how are you going to account for how the expenses come in? How are you going to split them out? How are you going to report them? Is your finance system set up for that? Do you have partners internally that can help you with that? Those are things to consider as you put together this application. And then timing. this is the one element where the applications, you're looking at longer term commitments. That probably requires more signatures depending on your organization. So you need to keep in mind approval timelines. Do you have enough time to put this together, expedite it, get the approvals, and submit it? Do you have time to bring in external expertise? So if you're going to apply, especially if it's a large funding application, they might have an expression of interest phase. Should you apply, are you in a position to turn around and bring in that external expertise to quantify the funding? Are you able to move up some of those projects that you may have been keeping on, let's say, your asset management list? Can you move those up more quickly? Do you have, and if you need to bring in that external expertise, do you have the procurement in place to actually bring them in? Are you going to have to go externally for an RFP? Do you have the timelines to do that? That may impact your ability to actually convert your expression of interest into a full proposal. And so that's why you need to keep that in mind of, how shovel ready I'm going to be when it comes time to submit that proposal and then win and then achieve that funding. One thing to keep in mind on there is your commitment. In some projects, you may be required to do long-term reporting. So what is required after the project is complete? For some of you who have been around a lead construction project, and specifically who have delivered lead documentation or lead certification, you'll understand that once the project is over, most of the project team disperses. Information gets a lot harder to obtain from people. Budgets have been spent. So if you're looking at that kind of project where you're going to have reporting commitments well after the fact, do you have the systems in place to be able to report those? Because that reporting can go over several fiscal cycles in terms of your financial reporting and your performance reporting. Do you have the resources in-house if you have to continue that? Do you have the metering? Do you have the systems to quickly aggregate and report that? When we're looking at it, in-kinds, are you able to commit those in-kind contributions? What's your eligibility? On the flip side, there may be some internal resources that are ineligible to be part of that project spend. So are you going to have to either go externally or eat those costs? And lastly, a big one is your incidentals. So we talk about energy efficiency projects. Are you adequately understanding the risks of when we go to implement an energy efficiency project in existing buildings? The good ones often require tearing down the walls and finding out what's behind it. Do you have the funding in place to deal with any of those surprises that may show up in the background? And then one other comment is, obviously, when we're looking at reporting, is it worth carrying it as a project cost if you're looking at a cash flow situation? So an example would be measurement and verification. That takes up to a year after the project, but is a minimal cost. So if you're doing it externally, is it worth holding back your final payment from your funding agency? Or is it something that you're going to have to figure out to fund internally and carry those costs without matching contributions? And it's just also, when you're putting together this application, think about sustainment. So how does this align with your existing strategies? Often the best source of opportunities will be in your existing energy management plans and other strategic documents. This will outline how both straightforward projects, but also opportunities to increase the proficiency of your organization in applying energy management. So there's opportunities for culture change from these funding sources. How does that fit into what you're currently trying to do? If it doesn't align with what your strategy is, you may want to reconsider if this is worth pursuing. When we look at the University of Calgary, we often start with our institutional strategy outlining that we will be a net zero campus and we will be the most energy efficiency, one of the most energy efficiency campuses in Canada. So we want to pursue projects that drive those opportunities. But then we also look at our climate action plan. Where are the opportunities and the themes that we want to pursue there, and where does that align with the funding opportunities? And so projects such as ongoing commissioning and ISO 50001 will require ongoing commitments to sustain them on top of the action. The benefits are that you have an increased list of opportunities that you can then turn around for more applications. The downfall, the concern here is when we pursue some of these operational opportunities, is will they be sustained? And if not, it can create a reputational risk. It can create barriers to future opportunities to obtain the funding or even prove the business case internally. So we've gone through a lot of the, what are you looking at when you're going to go apply, strategies to, and what you need to be cognizant both before you apply and after a project is done. But when we look at our opportunities, especially in this tight funding environment, there's opportunities that exist within our existing asset management programs and our new construction programs that are probably your best source of that matching funding that you need to leverage this. So understanding what is in your long-term asset renewal, your IMP funding plans, will really allow you to take a deeper look in terms of, okay, if I replace this piece of equipment, if I replace this system, do I have an opportunity to make it better and more efficient and more resilient? It also allows you, when you know that you're going to do major renovations into a space, oftentimes it is more cost effective to do these projects with other programs. You'd rather disturb a space once than 3 times, and so it becomes a lot easier to sell that internally, to say, okay, we're already going in there to do a tenant improvement. We're going to deal with the mechanical systems behind the walls, and I'm going to add to my fault detection systems in these projects to make it a smarter space. So improving access will reduce the cost, make that project more viable, and it's easier to sell to the users that you're trying to support when you can only have to go in there once. So strategies, so that primarily falls onto your existing buildings. When we take a look at new construction, we're looking at a lot of the different, when we take a look at the new construction, there's opportunities there as well to actually take a look at how some of the components of that new construction could probably be leveraged for external funding. So I'm not focusing here on the external funding for the entire new construction project, but having a good understanding of your energy efficiency and your climate elements of your design and design criteria. So why is it in there? Why is it impactful? What's the outcome of it? Will allow you to start to say, okay, so this is value add. This should be eligible for increased funding. I can show to my to those funding agencies that this is a value add and useful for their funding. So being able to pull out those elements and say, okay, we've required X amount of renewable energy on our building, or we're targeting net zero. This is well beyond business as usual. What components of it can I pull out as a separate project to be able to fund? As part of that is when you're going through the design process, some elements will get dropped out due to value engineering. So it's very key to keep track of those, that from your, initial design elements, your schematic, your charrette, what are the elements that you look at and say, okay, this is going to drive the energy efficiency and the green construction of this building. What are the key elements that can get carried through, and what has been dropped out? And if these elements start to fall out because they're not priorities, there may be an opportunity to bring them back into design based on these external funding opportunities. So if you're able to get external funding on it and reduce the cost by half, does it fit back into your budget? So this is one of those things where being in the loop on these, especially being able to say, okay, if we want to keep the budget on track for this construction project, maybe we can use external grant applications and make that a standalone project. So that's where you're tracking your conceptual and schematic design and seeing if those initial elements are still out there. So in terms of, we talked about all these strategies. I just want to link back, if you're not familiar with some of these. Obviously, NRCan was a good source of information. The previous Energy Efficiency Alberta, I'm not sure how much information, but what they were doing around energy managers, and their projects. So having a sense of what those are like, that can assist. You may not have to ever put together a climate lens yet, but taking a look at the climate lens guidelines from Infrastructure Canada can help you guide what's going to have to be put into your application. How does it benefit the key elements that the government of Canada is looking in their funding applications, and also looking at, do you have the reporting mechanisms in place to actually quantify and report after the fact. Another good source of what you should be looking at in terms of how to put together an application and what's the steps. Sometimes it's beneficial. I will throw out BC Hydro and Manitoba Hydro as two of the organizations through their Power Smart that provide a lot of details on what they want to see in terms of their energy efficiency projects, such as ongoing commissioning and retrofit projects. So what is their steps to getting to full funding? And you can often take those concepts, bring it back and say, okay, I'm going to need an energy study for this, or I should be looking at performing an energy study before I submit for a full capital funding on here. So what do I need to do that? And then lastly, internally, when you're looking at your ISO 50001 and your strategic visions of where do you need to, where can you actually move the needle within your organization when it comes to the management side, and what opportunities for funding may align with that. If you're not pursuing 50,001 yet, one tool would be the Carbon Trust Energy Management Self-Assessment. It's a fairly quick exercise, but it can give you an idea of, okay, where can I move the needle to? And maybe there are opportunities out there that can actually assist me for funding. So what's the business case there, and how do I put that together? So I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. I hope this was beneficial, and my hope today is really to just bring up some items to keep in mind when you're pursuing these applications, and how to best look internally, in behind the seat cushions for extra change to help fund these applications.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Julien. It was a great presentation. I think there's a lot of value in it. So thanks for that. Now I think we can move into the kind of question portion of the webinar. So if anybody has questions, there's been one question that's come up on the chat. Helen asked if the EEA may have been split between TIER and ERA. I know there's changes with the EEA program. Is that something you're aware of, or does anybody know that if that's the case? We can maybe check into that if we don't know right offhand. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, that'd be great. It's a good time you can either put them in the chat and I can see them, or you can just pop up and turn on your mic, I guess. Otherwise, I have a couple questions as well. But thanks again. It was an excellent presentation. It's great to get an overview of just how the funding process works. It's complicated, and it's got timelines for every component, every stage. So it's so important to kind of be on top of it. And then my experience is often when you want to fund something, you realize you have something you need to do, it's an emergency, but maybe you could have seen it coming with the process in place to kind of go through what your projects might be. So one of the questions I'd had, and maybe you've already answered a bit, but it's where are you developing your energy efficiency projects? Is there a process that your group goes through to keep track of equipment that might be at the end of its age, or increasingly likely it's going to have problems, so that you can filter that through and find opportunities to fund it through and look at it through the energy efficiency lens. I mean, part of it too, you don't want to just replace, but sometimes you're forced to replace with what you had. You want to be able to be creative and replace with better equipment, more efficient processes. How do you prepare for those, Julien?
So in our case, and I'm just going to pull up the extra slide I did have on this. So I'm going to use the example of our the Low Carbon Economy Fund that we were successful in getting funding on. So that came out of our utility reduction program. So the utility reduction program was originally a 5-year program, but we had to get an annual approval on the business case. So we had to get annual approval on the business case. So what we had was our consultants coming in and doing energy audits on a regular basis to basically prepare ourselves for the next year. So we had that in place. We also worked with our IMP team internally to say, okay, here's where we're seeing opportunities from the energy side. What do you have? What do you have in terms of your equipment list that you want to target here, and vice versa? Conversely, what's your plan and in terms of which buildings, which mechanical systems are you looking to target at? When are you doing it? What's involved with that program? And is there some overlap in terms of what we can bring to the table? So that was key to have that conversation. So in terms of us, being successful in this application, the key element here was that we actually had done a institutional-wide walkthrough audits for our climate action plan. So we actually had an idea of, okay, when we look at our opportunity through energy efficiency on campus, and we look at our low-hanging fruit and the longer payback items, what's available across our institution. And so what we noticed was that our Foothills campus, we had a lot of opportunities there, but they fell into some of the longer payback items. So there was a financial barrier to actually implementing it. So we were able to, by using the funding, we're able to actually maximize the potential on that campus. So that's where an opportunity such as, we had our list of opportunities already ready to go at a high level. We were able to bring in our consultant and quickly turn around some level 2 audits that were able to support these applications. And the other part is that we had the metering and reporting in place, so it was actually easier for our consultants to get off the ground. But one of the challenges we did have is that our area within facilities is much younger. We don't have as strong as systems in place as say our IMP team does. IMP, they'll be able to list off every project they want to do in the next 5 years. We weren't at that. We were playing catch up all the time in terms of, we had a high level idea of what we wanted to do, but we didn't have a 5-year plan in place. So having that energy management plan now does help. We have a longer list of opportunities that we can go back and say, okay, we still have these available.
Oh, Donald, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Talking away to myself. There's a couple of questions on the chat and about stars specifically. And I know that Mount Royal mentioned in the chat that they recently were, completed that whole certification. I know a number of institutions have completed it and have been doing it for years. UC, U of A, MacEwan. And what the question was in the chat was relative to other certifications that exist. And the specific one was BOMA, but I'm sure there's a few out there. And Julien, you can respond a little bit, but I also have some perspective on it. I helped a lot with Mount Royal's process. I've also helped to some degree with University of Calgary's. The certification of STARS is about much more than just facilities. There's kind of four major components. Facilities is one of those. So it's very comprehensive around sustainability, which in the facilities portion is around energy efficiency as component greenhouse gas emissions, but also there's an academic portion, engagement portion that all contribute. So it really takes the institution as a whole to engage with the process. And it's pretty rigorous and quite comprehensive, takes a bunch of time. Took us 6 to 8 months to kind of gather the data, and that's the first stage, and you kind of have to go to everyone across campus. So relative to other programs of reporting, and there's quite a few different ones. BOMA, I think, would be probably focused, and it would be something facilities could undertake on their own. But so that's kind of the difference between those. Did you have some interaction, Julien, with STARS? You provide data for that?
Yeah. We get our annual or biannual ask for data, so we scramble to put that all together. That when we come to STARS, you pretty much touched on it. It's very much, are you looking at an institutional reporting, which in this case, includes that academic portion, your operations, everything from caretaking to your building performance. So it's much more encompassing, and it's much more about the institution as a whole, including the academia. When it comes to BOMA, that's very facilities focused. So you need to think, if I get BOMA certified, what is that helping to drive? So take a look at all the elements, because there's a lot of elements involved in BOMA that touches on almost all aspects of facilities and caretaking. So that's where, what is it going to help drive? Here at the University of Calgary, we have more focused on the ARC program from where we want to do high-level reporting. We want to be able to report to our campus users and to the community at a much more simple level, how we're doing. So ARC allows us to do it. There's still a lot of stuff in the background, but a lot of the information is just a simple information collection, and it's ongoing reporting. You may find similar benefits from Energy Star as well, in terms of if you want to drive energy, that's a great way to do it. But if you're looking at your policies, if you're looking at your standards, BOMA certification will help tease out where you can move the needle in sustainability.
Yeah, excellent point. No, I totally agree with that. That the STARS is an opportunity to really engage everyone on campus, and that can be a great thing if you want to kind of inform students, staff, academics about all these great things that you're doing or ways you want to improve. But it also it requires pretty significant investment of time to make that all happen. Whereas if really what you want to do is benchmark, yeah, exactly. You just want to benchmark your energy performance. There are other ones that are simpler to use that way. So I think there's a lot of with the limited resources we're having, it's more difficult to undertake. Yeah, thanks, Robert. You're totally right. STARS is a huge commitment, and yeah, it takes a lot of time. And it can be. I would say also it's a good engagement tool. It also can be strategic if your institution is focused on sustainability and wants to think broader terms, you can achieve a lot by looking that way, and it can focus you down into what you want, what you're going to do to get to where you want to go, particularly if it's sustainability related. Anyways, we could talk about this for hours. I'll try to maybe put together a summary of some of the certifications just as a document for us to reference, and it can help you understand what you want to be able to do. Yeah, totally. Any other questions about the presentation for Julien? Anything that was triggered that way? If they don't come up right away right now, let us know if they come up, and we can try to answer those later on as well. What time are we at? We're at about 11:50, so it's probably about time to start wrapping up. But again, thanks very much for the discussion. Thanks for your questions, and thanks for that presentation. It was excellent. It gave us lots to think about. So thanks for putting that together. What we want to do now in terms of is to figure out where we want to go with this group. And I don't know if we can do this as a discussion. My expectation is I'll probably send out some kind of a questionnaire, a really short one, to get ideas for, and we have some existing ideas for what we could do for presentations. And maybe we can onto those. You know, the one of the other questions we have is how often we should meet, and you can provide feedback right now, or we can talk about that through the questionnaire. But our idea is to either do it every 6 months or quarterly. We do have some folks who are interested in giving presentations that I think would be of value to the group, and we could probably set that up either way. You know, if an hour and a half isn't too much of your time quarterly, that's maybe what we'd aim for. Any thoughts on that? Anybody want to pipe up what they think? Yeah, we can put that in the questionnaire. The other aspect is, and feel free to interrupt me if you need to. Yeah, quarterly sounds good. Appreciate that. Yeah, and the more votes we have, the better idea we have. We can move definitely direction you want to. One of the things that I'm thinking of is whether we can collect data. Now, some organizations, it wouldn't have to be everybody, but kind of to hop alongside with the initiatives going on with that some organizations are participating in with the city of Calgary and the city of Edmonton. I'll probably want to take a look and see if those are similar kinds of data, and if they are, I think that comparing post-secondary use can work. Look at their data differently than other buildings. So participating with a bunch of commercial office buildings downtown is less interesting than doing it with post-secondaries. And even as we know, all post-secondaries are very different. But that's a question I'm going to ask and see if that's possible. I'll try to find out what the data looks like, and if it's going to be similar already, and let you know through that questionnaire, and then we can pipe in with that. But if you have opinions about that or how that could work, whether you think it's a bad idea, I'd want to know as well.
I think that's a really good idea, Donald. One of the things that we've encountered, so what the Building Energy Benchmark program through the City of Edmonton uses is Energy Star data. And unfortunately in Canada, where the states have a lot of different divisions of the types of buildings, there doesn't seem to be enough data in Canada right now for a post-secondary kind of subset. So the more that we could build, or even, hopefully the city of Calgary is maybe using Energy Star as well. So if that could be built up, then maybe we would actually have some better comparators to what we have right now.
Excellent. No, I appreciate that feedback. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I'll look and see, and I'll touch base with you to kind of talk about what the use or the cities is, or city of Calgary is, how their data looks. Excellent. Any other comments on that? Yeah, I think that we've got pretty much the group of Alberta included now. There's a few institutions that weren't able to come, and some that I haven't found contacts at. So if you notice that, I think I'll send out all the contact data. Oh, excellent. Thanks, Helen. Yeah, so we got the City of Calgary also uses Energy Star. So then just getting that consistency and kind of growing that out would be good. So if there's institutions that you're aware of that I haven't got on this call, let me know. I'll share, I think, our contacts unless somebody tells me that that wouldn't be a good idea. And the final thing is, want to put together an advisory committee to just inform stuff, and it'll be conversations like this. Should we do this? Should we do this? It'll be very simple questions that you'd probably be able to answer out of hand. So if, I know that I've got a few organizations that have expressed, their availability for that, and I really appreciate it. But if you'd like to be part of that, just let me know. You probably will be in one way or another, whether we do questionnaires, but if I have folks I can call, that would be great. Excellent, Amy. Yeah, that'd be great if I get St. Mary's. Yeah, to add them to the list. So I think that brings us to the end. If you have any questions that come up, let us know. But otherwise, I really appreciate your making time for this today, and I look forward to talking again soon. And it looks like we'll be aiming for quarterly. I'll confirm that in the next bit, but that would take us into the new year. Look forward to talking again then. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. No, thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. It's nice.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Hey, Donald.
Yes.
It's Matt from RDC.
Hi.
I had put up a question a little while ago. I'm curious if you could pass it around. We were approached by a company looking to do operating reserves or low.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if anybody's had luck securing contracts to sell these reserves or not.
Okay, and that's in relation to the renewables that you're producing?
Not necessarily producing, but just like in a sense, apparently there's some contracts out there where if there was a need for power, so to avoid a blackout situation or a brownout situation, we would be able to load shed portions of our building, and they would be able to use that power and redistribute across the grid.
Fascinating, and it's not like your local utility; it's some other organization. Or?
Well, I'll turn on my video so you can see me, but it was this. Who was it? It was EIA Global was our consultant for utilities. They were mentioning that they've had some success with getting contracts in the past with other clients. So I was kind of curious about it. I haven't looked at it too much yet, but I was curious to know if any of the other post-secondaries have considered that, or if they've been able to have any success with that.
Okay, yeah, sorry I didn't ask that question directly.
No, that's fine.
But
yeah.
That's very interesting. I hadn't realized, like, it's something I read about a lot because it's common in places like California and whatnot, but other places as well. I hadn't realized that it was a possibility here. So,
well, we had talked about it probably a year ago with them, and it kind of was dismissed because at the time the contracts in place were only for about a 1 megawatt type of situation, which we weren't prepared to be able to give, right? But it sounds like the restrictions have lowered, and the contracts now are for like 150 kilowatts.
Oh,
so it's making it more feasible now. So I was kind of curious to know if he mentioned a few universities. I think he mentioned Bull Valley, and they were working with them to try and do that. But I was hoping they may comment on it, but I didn't see them.
Yeah, Amy was pretty active on there, and she would know about that.
Yeah,
you're right. Like 1 megawatt would be
it's a little hard to accommodate. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be not feasible for almost anybody, but 150 kilowatts starts to be, you could consider it at least. How quickly does it actually, like, they tell you a day ahead, or?
Well, I think there's different contracts with different values associated, right? So if they can remotely steal it almost on a whim, you get a bigger contract, right? So if they have to give you notice, it's less of a contract. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it's interesting anyway. But
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm kind of curious to look into it a bit myself and see if it's a possibility for us. But I know we're doing large LED changeovers right now, so if I could interlink my LEDs to a program system where I could do that, then it might be feasible, right? But
yeah,
reduce them all, say, to 50% and shed off 150 kilowatts or something.
yes. Well, and what you start to think of too, it starts to help the business case around energy storage. So
yes,
if you have that kind of buffer, because I don't know exactly how it would work if you don't have some kind of buffer. I guess if you just know you're not going to need that energy, you're going to operate at a certain level, but that can be a little bit hard to predict.
We don't have capacity to do it ourselves, but we've heard too that people are running their generators as a situation like that too. So they're upsizing their generators, and it's not just an emergency generator now, right? They're able to run it and create energy basically off of that, right? And it exceeds any cost associated with running the generator. They'd be making more, right? So if they're small, they just flip the switch, right? So.
And as long as you know your generator can step up that quickly. And what generators tend to be, my experience, the backup generators are diesel, which
they are.
Are they that quick? I guess they have to be. They're quite quick.
Yeah, ours fire up within, I think, 3 seconds. Some of our newer ones, right? So they're fairly quick.
Okay.
But they're only running a very small system, right? So it's not enough to do any load shedding. But if you were to say upsize the generator in future replacements and start planning for that, there's opportunities, right? So.
Exactly. The diesel ones are common. Can they also be natural gas?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It should be.
And we have a situation, like, unfortunately we don't have the infrastructure ourselves, but we have a CHP where we probably could have put some infrastructure in place to transfer the load onto back to the grid directly instead of onto our campus, right? So then that way they could have, in that type of situation, they could just steal the power straight from the CHP, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a megawatt, so there's a decent amount, right? But
totally, yeah. And I know that it's becoming more common. Campuses have their own generation. Like Mount Royal just put in, I think it's a 5 megawatt CHP unit, and I know that David Silburn at SAIT, he has huge plans for producing for the whole part of the city, and so it's becoming more common. And if those contracts are possible, it is interesting to know how other folks are reacting to it and how it might be able to work. Oh,
there's the man right there.
Yeah, exactly. Did you hear me talking about him? Hey, David. Are you there?
Hey, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I was just signing in because I had to leave for a little while, and then I came back to see if there was still ongoing conversations happening.
Oh, thanks. We were talking about, and this is something you may have some ideas about. Up in Red Deer, Matt has been approached by EAA Global, and you can probably explain it better, to load shed.
Yeah.
And is that something that you're aware is going on in other post-secondaries, or do you have experience with that?
EA Global, so Global Capital, Jacob or Jonah, are they're doing ESCO financing. Basically, it's a lot like anyone else, right? So MCW Hemisphere has an ESCO financing group out of Toronto. A lot of the sort of control folks, so the JCI Johnson Controls folks, the Honeywell folks, lots of those folks are doing some financing, and it relates to typically sort of primary building analytics. So we're doing one right now with Coppertree. So Coppertree ESC is aligned with PCL Construction. And so we're doing a building analytics project where we took the building reasonably far. We signed ourselves up for actually the motivator was, so the program that we're doing with them is essentially doing basic building analytics, a series of some load sheddings that might relate to peak load on that particular building, and then ultimately it pays for the program itself, and they finance capital maintenance as it's required, right? We kind of knew it was already wrong, and we actually had the money to do it ourselves. In this particular case, we approached it from a risk alarm scenario, so I didn't have control tech capacity in-house. And with freeze up coming, we were seeing some fairly major risks. So the main reason why we actually did it is because I needed to install a bunch of new control alarms and risk alarms in the building and tie them back to our central power plant, so that if there was a freeze up or a temperature change in a couple different spots, we could address it quickly before anything broke. And we kind of tacked that on as a relationship builder, honestly.
Good negotiations.
So I'm
Say it
curious,
again?
are you guys currently selling power back to the grid?
Oh, no. So from a load shedding perspective, Helen might have described it in that last meeting. We applied, so we're eligible under the tier as a large emitter because of our cogen system in-house, which is only about 3 megawatts. So we've actually applied for the funding that just came out under the tier program for large emitters. And so I've actually asked to purchase our cogen because we currently lease it a lot like you guys. And so I wanted to buy it outright and own it and then stop paying them exorbitant fees because their maintenance program and our ops costs, it didn't make a great business case. And so part of the program was to buy it and then automate some load shedding and some peak power load abatement, just because we're seeing our ratcheting costs are really, really high right now, and they keep increasing with COVID in particular. We saw these crazy spikes with equipment and chillers where we'd have an unoccupied building, a chiller would turn on or a compressor would turn on for like a welding or an electrical class, and it would just happen at the same time. So we literally were getting 800 kilowatt spikes that would completely change the load profile. And then, as you probably know, you're charged that rate for 365 days thereafter, because you've basically said, here's how big our pipe is and grown that pipe of electricity. So yeah, our load shedding program is not a program. It is we are monitoring major loads through our Delta and IntelliWeb systems. The energy management software that we're hoping to use isn't fully set up yet and doesn't account for all of those major individual loads. So we're just monitoring them individually because we've gone through the process of identifying what they are. And we're trying to offset them, and we would either offset them ideally with the big cogen system we have, but in this particular case, because of some other issues we're having, actually a diesel generator. So we'll kick on a diesel generator half an hour before those loads kick on, just because it's cost me $5 in fuel versus $50,000 in ratchet charges. So carbon be damned, I guess, right, Donald?
Sorry. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah.
It's just absolutely brutal right now. Yeah, our automation system is a mess. So one of my bigger projects right now is fixing that because it is a mess.
We're doing a lot of that right now too. Yeah, we still have old pneumatic lines on our site, so we're doing a lot of BMS and getting things more automated, right?
Yeah, so I was in another meeting and watching the presentation on mute for a while and watching the presentation talk about the IMP versus CMR fund variances and changes. And one of the major things we've used is the IMP funds to date to cover that pneumatic to DC upgrades or adding sort of VFDs or energy saving motors or any of these kinds of things. I don't know what we're going to do if that funding disappears because we've got 80% of campus to still convert, right?
Yeah, we're in the similar boat.
Yeah, 500,000 square meters of space on 1960s I still I have a water condensing chiller we still turn down with a Phillips head screwdriver and call that tweaking, right? Like it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thanks for that. It was good to hear.
Well, yeah, woes, right? I mean, all of these facilities, I think there's some automation. You guys have done a really good job. I've seen a lot of the work that's been done there. It's quite good. We had spoken with the same consultant group that you had on your cogen system, and I know Mark Chidwick pretty well from former life. And so had seen some of that information before and how they were packaging things. I guess one question that I might ask is, where are you currently storing all your data? So when you have all this system information going somewhere, do you have a central data repository that you are pulling all this information from?
We're in the process of trying to build one. Currently, it's an Excel spreadsheet, so it's not very detailed, right? So yeah, we're very desperately trying to get that set up.
Okay. So us too, we currently funnel everything through. So the hint is we went with the Copper Tree program because I could buy a Copper Cube devices, which are 5,000 trending units cheap if we did it through a different type of program. So they're almost free. And now we're pushing all of our building information. So all the metasys, any of that old pneumatic DDC kind of translation, that all gets converted and pushed through the Copper Cube now to a data server. We're still local. We have a common naming convention. So we're using the haystack model as a common database sort of asset naming convention. And just trying to figure out whether we're going to go online or on the cloud, because that server itself is in our power plant, and by server it is a crappy old desktop computer that could go any day.
I was talking to Mark actually a little while ago, and he mentioned that there's some opportunities to kind of get in on a cloud-based system with a few different institutions, and then we can all share the cost of that. So I'm kind of curious to see how that all turns out and if you can push that along, but sounds like you guys might be interested in that.
I would be. So we have a project actively on the go right now that's exploring what that would be and the impact. My biggest worry is that with any database, you need database managers. So the nice thing about subscription services is also the bad thing about subscription services. And so we're weighing that balance right now. But yeah, we'd be very interested. We are exploring 2 or 3 different options. From the cost of like buying into like an Amazon Web Services or somebody like that, like it's cheap, like it's nothing. The issue is really how far do we take it? So unfortunately, our project ballooned into, well, let's just build a smart campus and we'll include all security and all access control. And it went from basic building automation, energy management to full scale smart city data warehousing, which is a different request. Not in Excel.
Those things so quickly kind of can grow and become difficult.
Well, they're interconnected, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. They are interconnected.
Yep.
What you choose to do now versus how you build a database system to incorporate something in the future is probably that's the key, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool.
A good example is we recently tied a bunch of air curtains to security cameras. So when we have a temperature alarm and a security camera that indicate occupancy in 3 different zoned areas for the wintertime, we're turning or creating a change in the variable speed of these air curtains that are part of the doors, because we were getting some freeze up on some of our buildings where the sprinklers and some other HVAC equipment was just too close to those entrances. And so without basically flipping a manual switch, this is one way to do it, right?
Cool.
Wow. That's neat. Interesting to hear how that goes.
Yeah, I sometimes think just turning it on, and then at the end of the day, turning it off is a lot easier.
Huh.
Cool. Well, thanks for the conversation. I think we'll get off to lunch here, but appreciate the call and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, that's great. No, it was very serendipitous, David, that you came back on. Thanks very much. It's good to see you. Good to meet. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.